accolades for him, but now they're not in my notes. He's like, no, don't do it. Humility is one of his strong suits. As his workshops will give participants experience with AI tools, mapping alerts to techniques, clustering them into contextualized attack steps, and constructing comprehensive kill chains to uncover coordinated attacks. Please, everyone, give a warm welcome for Ez.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you guys for showing up. I appreciate you giving me some of your time here at DEF CON. I hope you're having an amazing DEF CON this year. Everybody enjoying their time here? All right. If I may ask just a little bit about your background. Anybody here in security operations, like defensive side? Wow, okay. Anybody here in red team, purple? Wow, fairly blue, okay. Anybody here a data scientist? Okay. Wow, 5.5? Okay. All right, so mostly SOC people. We're gonna try to cater more to the use case in SOC and less to the data science piece. So the way I like to say it is essentially, nobody cares how we do it. People care what are we doing. So forget the word AI. We're not here to do AI. We're here to do a use case in cybersecurity in the SOC. And the use case is essentially, how do we make sure that the incident analysis is a little automated? With AI, with whatever, we'll see, right? We'll make sure it's automated. Everybody's good to pull up their laptop and do stuff, or not really? Who has a laptop and ready to go?
Depending on what we need.
Okay, we'll keep it lightweight. We'll keep it lightweight. All right, I see how it is. Nobody wanted to carry the whole laptop on their back. You just have empty backpacks. Is that what's going on?
Look at the front row.
Get some more T-shirts. You know, get some more swag. Buy all the Flipper Zeros. Mess with everybody that has their Bluetooth on. Okay, I see how it is. Okay. All right, to start it off, I'll give it to my good friends who are coming from the operations side. If you don't mind, if you can come up. The cord is a little short. This is Harry. Harry's an exec in technology, and he has a lot of good stories to tell us. Not sure if he can say where he works, or it's up to him. I'll let him take it from here, but he's an actual operational person, not data scientist. He will share with us some problems in terms of incident contextualization and correlation. And we'll take it from there. So we'll try to be problem focused, not solution focused. Go for it.
Thank you.
Go for it.
My name is Harry Sarwari. I don't want to block you guys off here. And I work for SAP NS2. NS2 is the division where we do a lot of FedRAMP type of stuff, mostly federal, DoD, IRS, DOJ, all the departments you love to hate or hate to love, I don't know. But I'm with those guys, and I've been in operations. I started my career as a system admin, network admin, and worked my way up to where I am today. And so data contextualization, you know, if you don't know what your data is, where your data is, how it's compartmentalized or contextualized, whatever word you like to use, you're lost. And bad guys could be living in your environment and you have no idea what they're doing, or bad code, bad information. And also, when you need the information to make decisions, if you don't have it properly contextualized, you're not going to get the right information to make the right decisions. And you end up making bad decisions that can cost the business, outages, your customers could be suffering due to outages or lack of availability of the data. So a lot of our challenges are in actually contextualizing that data, right? Whether you use, you know, scripting, whether you use LLM, whether you use AI. I don't have a 100% confidence that either one of those either one of those technologies is 100% foolproof, right? So you need the people part of this, right? You need people to conform to putting the right data in the right areas. You know, I think you're going to see some of the speakers here that talk about, how they were, compromised because certain passwords were at SharePoint. Well, why would you do that, right? So, same thing. We've gone through a lot of different use cases where we've seen data not being in the right place at the right time or in the right place, period. So it's caused a lot of issues in many of the customers that I've supported in the past. Whether it's commercial or government, right? Some of the critical infrastructure that I supported were life and death situations. So not having the right data available for the doctors or the nurses at the right time to make the decision on life and death situations could result in, a very deadly combination, right? So especially during COVID, we've had a lot of challenges there. So we could probably talk about some of those things, but just wanted to give you guys a high-end overview of, some of the information that I've been managing in the past, many years. And whether it's Visa or NS2 or SAP or, some of those companies, data has always been a challenge on contextualizing it. So I'll let the Wiz talk about how he solves that problem. Thank you.
All right. So just a quick kind of, I guess, disclaimer. These guys are actually like incident commanders, CTOs, CSOs, CIOs. So the reason we bring them here is to give you the actual problem before we start the workshop, so that you don't really feel like we're just doing AI for the use of AI. This is not scripted. None of these people prepared anything. They don't have any kind of interest in what we do, but they're actually sharing real problems. So I'll give it off very quickly to Chris from Direct Defense, right?
Yeah.
And he will let us know a little bit about some of the incidents and how contextualization actually played out in real life with some of the APTs that he faced. Because you guys are on the defensive side, you're gonna enjoy some of these stories. Thanks, man.
All right, hey everybody. Chris Walcott. I'm Chief Security Officer at Direct Defense. So we are a cybersecurity services firm, about 110 people. We do MSSP. We have an OT specialty practice, so we'll do critical infrastructure and manufacturing, MSSP as well. And then AppSec, pen testing, mobile app, hardware testing, and all the 3 and 4 and 5 letter acronym compliance stuff. So we do a fair amount of breach work. I have been in the industry 25 years. Most of my time has been spent in critical infrastructure, and I've handled over 1,000 breaches in that time. So I'm going to give you a little context. I'm going to take you back to a breach from last year. This is late summer, and this is a client that came to us. So on a Saturday afternoon, the threat actor went into a T-Mobile store in one of the largest US cities with a really good fake ID and all this person's credentials, and SIM swapped one of the IT admins for this company. So he figured out pretty quickly that he'd been SIM swapped, or that his phone wasn't working, and he contacted them and they told him. And he swapped it back. And at that time, T-Mobile didn't have capabilities for protections on account mechanisms the way like Verizon did. Anybody who had T-Mobile knows how many times you've been notified of breaches in the past 2 years. So the same threat actor went into another T-Mobile store in the same city and did it again about an hour later. And then they started calling the help desk. And they social engineered the help desk to break the company's policy. So company policy was that help desk staff should not be able to reset admin credentials. Tier 1 staff didn't have, by policy, that authority, but they technically had the rights. So whether that's a good idea, we can debate. Personally, I don't think it is. We don't let our SOC do it. But they made a series of phone calls, 4 or 5. They introduced some interference in the connection, some garbled sound kind of stuff. They convinced them to do it. So they reset the creds, and then they started off with their attack. So about an hour into this, we got contacted and brought into the mix. And the first thing they did is they got into Intune and created an Intune group, and they pushed a PowerShell script out to about 20 people that were in the IT group, so people that they already expected had some level of escalated privilege. And what they did is they were pushing out a very well-known vendor's endpoint detection agent. Not one that this company used, but they had already compromised one of the internet-facing servers for that EDR company. So the endpoint detection agents, as you know, give you a lot of access. You can do remote control, you can push files. So this was their method. So they used Intune, they pushed PowerShell. These are things that are normal IT activities. They fly under the radar. A lot of times your SIM isn't going to pop on this as a threat. So the first problem is, how do you catch things that are going to be normal contextually? It's noise under the radar. It's not necessarily going to throw a flag, right? The next thing they did is they used that, once they'd pushed that agent out across about 20 systems, they went and they downloaded some software from a site that they had set up. And this is where their first attribution came in, because they were pulling from a .ru site. So they didn't care if they got caught. They had all this stuff pre-scripted. It happened really, really fast. They pushed that, they pulled the software, they pushed that software across the same group, which gave them some additional credentials. They started harvesting things. At the same time, they had already pre-purchased a commercial replication software package for SharePoint. They had their own environment set up, and they kicked off a replication of this company's SharePoint to their own, which is a much, much faster way to steal data than going and looking for files and taking them. So while the replication is running, they log into CrowdStrike as this admin. They spin out an API key, and they start doing their own testing of their packages. So when they're ready to roll out ransomware, they work it until they can get it past CrowdStrike. Nobody can react fast enough to stop stuff like that. So now they get into the bare metal hypervisor using one of the new vulnerabilities that had just come out at the time for full access to hypervisor. They changed the root passwords, which were defaults, shouldn't have been. And then they locked that with the then brand new ransom lockers that were available for the hypervisors. So now they've locked them out of all of their servers. They've replicated out their SharePoint environment. They have command and control over about 20 IT accounts through logged in credentials on those systems. And they've taken all these steps, and we're trying to track them and catch them. So what we caught is we caught the first PowerShell from the Intune script. We caught that it was pulling files from .ru, and we're able to start blocking and tackling and locking down things. Same time, they had also spun up a new, they published their own app in Azure. So really, really sophisticated in how they were doing things. Everything was pre-scripted. This is a well-known state-sponsored group. They took down the company's internal domain. Microsoft was brought in to help them bring it back online. They're working alongside us. And they said, oh yeah, we recognize these attributes. We've seen them like 6 times in the past 3 months. We've been chasing them. So the kinds of things that you need correlations for, because your SIM isn't necessarily going to pop on almost anything they did. And at the time, there was no logging capability for the bare metal and the hypervisors, and no endpoint protection ability to stop that. None of the anti-ransomware had capability for the bare metal hypervisors. So that's my first story. We might hear another one later. Oh, one more thing. So this is a $25 billion company. Big company, lots of resources, like a 300-person IT group. They're a major manufacturer in the DoD space, and one of the domains had been bridged across into OT. So OT is my expertise, and one of the problems they had is now they had bridged that gap. So access into that critical manufacturing space was also potentially compromised. So fun stuff.
Super cool. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, man.
I don't know why we have 2 mics. It's the whole thing. But these are some great stories about actual incidents. If I may give you one more story from one more exec, that would be George. George is the CISO at, can I say or can I not say? I don't know.
Yeah, you can say.
He's at CISO at Truby Life. They have all the dating, all the sexy stuff. They do that. So pretty cool people. He's the CISO, so he will share a few of his challenges as well in terms of his incident analysis and correlation. He will share a few of the actual problems as well, and we'll take it from there.
Oh, I need to?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. How's it going? My name is George, as our friend has told you. More specifically, my company, Ruby Life, is the parent company for a well-known brand called Ashley Madison. You might have all heard of it. So I am the CISO for that company. I've rebuilt security. I am post-incident. So please, and by all means, if you want to ask me about it, then so be it. But just to tell you, I wasn't here when the thing happened. What I can tell you is that we have fully gone to the cloud post-COVID. So we used to have a really nice flush office in Toronto. We're based in Canada, and we sold that office, and we are now fully remote, fully cloud-oriented, not even with a physical DC. In my previous world, I was in the military defense world as a contractor. I worked as a CISO at a contracting company there. We had a physical DC, we had a cloud environment, we had every kind of secure issue that you could imagine, because we were dealing with classified research and development for technologies with the Canadian Army. I decided that was kind of too boring and too stressful at the same time, so I decided to go into dating. That space is a little bit more interesting because you're dealing more with an SDLC. So you are developing your own software, you're developing your own product. That means you as a security leader are managing devs. Who here has managed devs before? Who here has run face first into a wall? Same thing, super great, right? They don't like well, our devs are cool, we've been doing secure code training, they're pretty into it, but traditionally, developers want capabilities. They want fast capabilities, they want to meet their deadlines, and they want to move to the next big thing. We have to find a way to put guardrails on devs. We have to find a way to make sure that they still meet their deliverables in an effective frame of time. Things sometimes do miss deadlines, if anyone who's been a part of a software development process knows, but you do generally have to meet your production orders. The other thing that happens sometimes in the cloud environment is you have developers that do not work in a manner that is particularly secure, right? So you have guys sometimes who will push things into prod that maybe they wouldn't or shouldn't push into prod, and you have folks sometimes who are giving away accesses to things that they shouldn't do. So access control becomes a major issue in a large-scale enterprise. You have to understand, not just by basic RBAC, but you have to understand who has accounts, what do they have access to, and do they still require that access? A major issue that we often encounter are credentials, which are leaked online for a variety of different reasons and methods, but they are leaked online and they are from employees who have left our firm, but those credentials still haven't been decommissioned in the environment, right? And that is simply an issue of, you could say it's an IT ops issue, you could say that's an auditing issue. At the end of the day, it becomes a security problem. So the access and control management issue around working in an active development organization within the cloud becomes a major concern. Anyways, that's what I got. Pass it over to you.
100%, can I get the mic?
Oh, you got the mic? Sorry about that.
No worries. I don't know why we do have that, but essentially, problem first, we had a CISO, a CSO, a CIO, from government, from commercial, from an MSSP, right? It's essentially SkyTalk. I don't know why DEF CON kicked out SkyTalk, but it's actually SkyTalk. Like, we have a bunch of execs, like, you know, ranting about shit that goes wrong, and this is a fantastic way to start any workshop. You start with a validation of what the hell is the problem, right? Don't tell me about AI, don't tell me about a freaking LLM. What the hell is the problem? And to give you the TLDR, here's what I heard from these three fine gentlemen. I've heard essentially the way they put together an incident was a story. So there was, here's what happened, here's who it affected, here's when it happened, and here's what enabled it, and here's the next step, 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 right? So as security operations guys, we kind of have to figure out the story and then tell the boss, yo boss, there's a story, right? How do we today get a story? How do we find what is relevant? That's what you can see in the next few steps as we go through on my computer where I don't pay Windows. So anyways, the talk is going to be context is all you need. How do we find things that are relevant to each other, right? The agenda is who the hell is this guy? A bunch of problems that we have today, and we'll talk a little bit about MITRE ATT&CK, but if everybody here is in security operations, I don't know if that makes sense. So we'll fly through it. Anybody here doesn't know what's MITRE ATT&CK? Okay, yeah, you guys are shy or you know too much, okay. So we'll talk about the investigations, right? The what, the when, the who. I'm a technologist, but any problem in the world is process, people, technology. So I will I will try to remind myself and you guys about people and process more than technology a little, as I'm giving you a lot of technology because I'm a technologist. But then we'll go into little examples, and then we'll open the floor for a lot of Q&A. All right. I know not everybody here has a table. Nobody has a table but me. Nobody has a charger but me. So I don't know how much we can do on your laptops. The 5 people that actually have their laptops. But I'll make sure I give you links for stuff, and I'll walk through your questions as we go. Don't feel shy. If you have a question, don't wait until I say if you have questions. Raise your hand, shout it out. This is DEF CON, we're not in black hat. Feel free to speak. Everybody can speak at any point. And if you do, please try to yell it and I will repeat it, or you can come up as well and just say it here. Anyways, let's start. Who the hell is this guy? I'm a cyber data scientist. I worked in the SOC in the data science and a few different places, Royal Bank of Canada, Launch, Cyber Defense, Huawei, Forescout. What it essentially says is I'm a nerd. I'm all about data science. I have a little bit of cybersecurity background, but I'm a data scientist essentially. I was doing a PhD in data science, so I can take you down the rabbit hole. Next step, challenges. It seems like cybersecurity just keeps on getting worse. Every time I do a talk, I kind of try to talk about actual problems. And goddamn, the problems keep on getting worse. I don't know why. A few years back, I thought Colonial Pipeline was the worst thing ever because I couldn't get gas. And now we have CrowdStrike, we have a million other things. It keeps on happening and things are worse. And the stats for that are essentially attacks get stealthier. The attackers get better. We have more folks. We have a bigger convention center because we got uncancelled, yay. But we still have more and better attacks. I don't know how. We're so much better, we're so much bigger, we're so much better funded. We still have a lot of attacks that fly under our radar. So I'm not sure how that happens. But our radar picks up a lot of stuff. Our technologies today, they pick up a lot of shit. And a lot of people here in the SOC, they will tell me, yep, I have a lot of alerts. I don't look at any of them. I look at the extra spicy, according to my searches and my rules and my notable alerts and my risk-based alerting and my whatever alerting. But I'm only looking at the top 0.1% of my data, because that's the data that I decided is worth looking at, because I'm a human. Do you really think if you collect 10 terabytes a day into my SIM, I can freaking look at 10 terabytes? No. We collect that for compliance. I don't collect that for me to use it. I collect it because someone needs me to collect it. But all I care about is the extra spicy from the EDR, maybe some extra spicy from the NDR, maybe some extra spicy in identity and cloud, because I'm here at the Cloud Village and I'm all about cloud. But not much else. I don't really care about the extra spicy elsewhere. And if I have a phishing queue or if I have any other stuff, I just, get rid of it, give it to someone else, make it in a different queue. Don't even get into my SIM, you're the guy that handles, the phishing queue, you're the guy that handles the, I don't know, whatever else queue. But essentially we try to look only at the extra spicy. And God knows we have a lot of tools. We have a lot of tools. If you go to Black Hat, if you make that mistake and go to Black Hat, while you're pissing in a urinal, you will be sold to. You will be sold to anywhere, and you will constantly see more tools. I was pissing and this guy was telling me about a tool I didn't know about, and I took my phone while I'm pissing and I noted it down because I was like, wow, that's a new tool. Wow, you guys are amazing. So we have a lot of innovators making new tools, a lot of innovators making new products, new categories of products, and we still suck. I'm not sure why. It's so bloated and ineffective, but that's just the state of affairs. And some might say that today we have worse cybersecurity than 50 years ago. And usually the response to that is, yes, we do. But here's why. Back then it was so simple, dude. What the hell are you talking about? It's not apples to apples. That's so unfair. Today, this is my home. It's no more basic. For Stuxnet to happen, they were circulating a virus for 2 years. 2 freaking years, because it was air-gapped, until it finally made its way on a USB. Finally, someone plugged it in to print an assignment for their kid. And boom, we had Stuxnet, finally, after 2 years. You know how many utilities were scared because they were running the exact same stuff? And they were like, God knows if it circulates its way into mine, right? So, and you have a lot of stories about that, right? You have a shit ton of stories. Go for it. You have a shit ton of stories about that.
Yeah. So, this has been made public knowledge since then, so I'll tell who it was. So I was working for a big engineering firm called Black & Veatch. They built more megawatts of power generation than anybody else in the world, and we were under contract at Tennessee Valley Authority. And TVA, for anybody who doesn't know, is the largest wholesale power producer in the US. They cover about 8 states. They're a pseudo-government agency, so they're private sector, but the board's appointed by the president and the employees are federal. And they had a joint venture for a new 61850 substation. So the first fully digital substation in the US is a joint venture between TVA and Oak Ridge National Labs. We were doing a pen test. I was there on site at that substation when Stuxnet hit the news. And I looked down at my phone and I went, shit. And I looked up and here I'm staring at an HMI, which is the touchscreen that runs the substation. And it's, first off, it's hardened Windows XP, if that's a thing. So it's industrial XP, which is shockingly high number still use, right? Long life, you can still buy. So I think the LTSC version of Windows 10 is guaranteed to get patches to like 2030. The LTSC 2021 that you can still buy. So these industrial environments, obviously a lot of this stuff's really old. Well, hardened XP didn't have any antivirus on it, and it was the same Siemens version of software that was targeted by Stuxnet. So we stopped the assessment. We go back to the offices. We call Siemens. You're going to love this. Like, we need to put antivirus software on there. Oh, well, we had a special tested version on there. It was an extra $50,000. You redlined it off the PO. Really? Well, you said you were going to install your own version. Well, we didn't. Oh, well, now you're 3 revs ahead, so you're going to have to upgrade before you can install our current version of antivirus. What is that going to cost? $2.5 million. But this is the kind of stuff that happens, right? These are the situations where little decisions are made that can be short-sighted in budgeting, and it's exactly one of those cases. The number of utilities that were facing the problem of Stuxnet, literally the day it hit the news, was not small. So that was my first time testifying for NERC. That was fun.
That's an amazing story. It just goes to tell, like, it's not just technology. There's a shit ton of other stuff that can go wrong. And if we're all here technologists, we usually just, we're like, the people in the process is up to the boss, but can the boss really pull it off? I don't know. We probably need to help them a little. But you kind of make sure, like everything is just a lot more complex. And like you can actually, if you want to do Stuxnet today, you can actually pull it off like a lot easier. You don't need a 2-year circulation of your virus all over the world. Like the same nuclear plant that got attacked by Stuxnet now has a smart grid, and you can connect to it like from any home in that city, right? Like they have a smart grid. They have like solar panels like selling back to the like freaking grid that's connected to the plant, and it's a whole mess. So there's a lot more attack paths, and usually that's why every SOC analyst in the world would just like show up to a talk like this and they're like, wow, you're gonna take my job away, hell yeah. Like if this was any other role, if this was compliance automation, no one would show up. If this was anything else, no one wants their job to go away. But you guys in SOC, and security operations, you're like, dude, automate the hell out of my job, please. Like, I mean, I have to let you down a little. I'm not gonna automate it. I'm just gonna make it a little bit easier so you can hire people that are not unicorns. And that's a little bit on the people side. I think we hire a lot of unicorns. We always look for the best of the best of the best to be our layer ones. And there's like, I collected like at least 20 resumes since I'm here in Las Vegas of people that actually want to take a job as layer 1, but no one wants to get them a job because they're not unicorns. We just make it too hard to be a SOC analyst, and people that are in the SOC want to get out of the SOC. So I think that's something that we can fix with technology. We can make it a lot easier to be a SOC analyst, and I'm going to tell you how. What the hell do SOC people do? Well, there's a SOC SANS survey. I'm going to plug SANS. I'm not sure why, but they're the only people that run a SOC survey that asks me. So I just have to plug them. But it's a free SANS SOC survey that you can get every year. They launch it, and essentially shows you what people are complaining about in the SOC. So the #1 complaint for the last 6 years is essentially lack of correlation. What the hell is lack of correlation? It essentially just is a big word that we put on all of our hopes and issues, and we just say, you know what, if you're an analyst and you're running an investigation, you correlate. If you're an analyst and you're investigating something, you correlate. If you're a threat hunter, you correlate. If you're a DFIR, you correlate. If you're anything, you correlate, right? So what the hell is correlation? Well, correlation essentially is what are relevant data points to this, right? Like when I'm looking at an incident, what are the relevant data points that I need to know about, right? Well, A lot, but how am I going to get them? Well, you know, like there's a lot of ways. You can start with the SIM. I mean, the SIM is essentially a logical focal point where you have all of the data in the world that you need, right? You have events, you have logs, you have alerts. How many, I don't know, how many things do you guys have in the SIM? Like, George, can you give us a little on how many things you have in your SIM, just to be realistic?
Well, we definitely go through the endpoint part. Whoa, sorry. Are we good? Yeah. All right, so pretty much all those things we have in SIM, except for physical, since we are not a physical shop. But really, we're trying to create a unified correlation on all of our alerting. And right now, we're actually going through and trying to change our SIM, since we talked about Splunk in the last hour for like all that time, but really like we've been trying to rip Splunk out. But the thing with Splunk that makes it so appealing and why people like prefer to use them as their SIEM is that everything plugs into Splunk. That is the actual value prop of Splunk. In terms of its usability, I would argue it's garbage. Most people would argue it's garbage. I don't really like doing SQL code. I don't know anyone else who likes doing SQL, but that is the tool that can plug into everything. Now there are next-gen SIEM solutions, though, that actually help not only with the correlation, but they help with different components as well. So they do user behavior detection, as well as they have, what I find fascinating, modules for SOAR automation baked into the platform itself. So the value proposition of what you're getting your SIEM to do is actually much different today than what it was 5 or 10 years ago. And I think that's really the advancement now, is that everyone wants that unified single pane of glass to get all their security information, that miracle turnkey, I hate that word, quote unquote cure, but really that's the direction we kind of have to go in. And one could speak as well to a higher industry problem in that right now everything is about tool replacement. Right? If I want to buy a new tool, if I want to buy a new SIEM, potentially I have to replace some other tool with it. And that's not a technical issue, that's a business logic issue, that's a money issue, right? Security budgets are continuing to get slashed, but our environments are getting more and more complex, and the things that we have to have visibility on are becoming greater by the day. I think this is creating a major conflict for blue teams around the world trying to secure complex environments.
All right, so a lot of interesting pieces. So everything is in the SIM, right? You talk to any exec, they're like, everything is in the SIM, right? As practitioners, are actually everything in the SIM? I don't know, right? Not really, right? But the vendors say that, and the execs hear that, and that's a people problem, right? The process is not there because the process is expensive as hell. Do you know how much it costs to put stuff into Splunk? Most people that I know that have Splunk have a lot of shit that's not in Splunk because it's too expensive to put it in Splunk, right? So how the hell do we even have that? Like that chart that says everything is in there is not even true. It's not even true. Like we actually don't have everything in there. We don't have a logical focal point of everything. And especially when you say identity and you have like CMDBs, who here has a CMDB that they actually like? Nice. Is it a technology problem? CSV could be a freaking table, could be a CSV, right? Why the hell don't we have a good CMDB? Anybody care to shout out? It's a process. No one is freaking updating the CMDB. No one is actually doing this shit, right? Like no one is keeping our CMDB updated. And it's so basic stuff. Like it's so basic. And when you go after a data science problem, you're like, okay, where's my data? And welcome to the talk. We didn't even freaking start on data science because we were just tracing the data. Like we were tracing the problem, we got the problem. The problem is, okay, get me everything that's relevant. Get me the shit that enabled stuff to happen. Get me some sort of a causality. Get me some sort of all of my data that is relevant. Do me some correlation, right? And now what? Like, find me where the data is. Let's do some data science. Well, the data is not in one place. The data is in a shit ton of places. So, step one, let's assume we have all of the data in one place, which is a very crazy assumption, but we're cloud people. Anybody here uses AWS? Hell yeah, okay. So, when you're in cloud, how much does it cost to have all of the data in S3 bucket and everything connects to S3 bucket? How much does it cost? Exactly, 10 cents, freaking cents on the terabyte, right? How much does it cost in any other cloud provider? Forget about AWS, GCP, Azure, Alibaba, I don't know, Datadog, whatever it is, right? Snowflake, Databricks, whoever, right? Any other cloud. Storage is cheap as hell. So now that we store them, what do? We have this nice focal point of storage. We store everything in one place, right? That's a fantastic cornerstone. How do we actually analyze stuff, security folks? Well, have you heard about queries? But then I can't really put them in S3 if I want to do a lot of efficient queries. Now I'm back to Splunk. So tell me a little, why do you do queries? Well, I do queries because, you know, it's pretty nice to find stuff that I'm looking for that is extra spicy. Well, show me one of these things that you call queries. Well, there's a whole thing called Sigma, as how the hell don't you know that? Go check the Sigma repo of a shit ton of rules, and they look something like this. They essentially look for a specific string in a specific data source. Nice, okay. And you can convert them into whatever you want. Well, there's also something called investigative playbooks. You're so outdated, you're talking about Sigma. Dude, we're in the future. Have you been to Black Hat? Everybody's a SOAR now. I don't freaking know what the hell is a SOAR until now, but it's essentially a place where you can put a bunch of stuff. It's essentially like UiPath, RPA, right? It's robotic process automation. It's fancy for like a robotic process automation, right? So what can you do? Well, you can do an investigative playbook. It means that if you find this, and you also find this, within 5 minutes, put it together. Okay, what kind of stuff? Well, I can go to, you know, pull any of those. Let's pull Splunk. I don't know, we're picking on Splunk for now, so let's pick on Splunk. So if you go to Splunk, you go to research.splunk.com, playbooks, investigation, under here, where here's all the open source playbooks. And these guys are building investigation playbooks. You can find these playbooks in a million other places where you get your playbooks. But let's pick one of them, where what does this do? This essentially says, okay, once you have a user, we will check if it's disabled. That's it. So this is a question. When I get an alert, I'm asking questions. I'm asking, is this disabled? No, it's not. Oh, okay. What's the next question? When you get an account, figure out if it has a shared attribute. Accepts a user device and looks up the most recent attributes and groups for that user. Okay. So this is essentially a question. Who the hell is this user? Is this in this business unit? Is it in HR? Is it in tech? Who the hell is this user, right? Okay, and then the next. Essentially what you have in these kind of queries or playbooks are essentially your questions. You just have a shit ton of questions, and you put them in a lot of queries and searches and investigative playbooks, and then you complain that your SIM is slow, because it's an enormous data search problem, right? And we're dealing with big data, and we're doing data searches. That's how bad this industry is. Every other person that has big data does big data analytics, but in security, we're doing big data searches. Ever wondered why? Anybody here uses any analytics? You use a user anomaly detection? I know George was talking about behavior analytics. Do you guys like those? Do you actually like it? What can you complain about one thing that you hate about it? What would it be? If there is one thing that you dislike about it? I don't mean to pick on you, but you built it your own. You built it completely in-house. That's fantastic. I see a lot of people doing that. What do you dislike about it? It has a lot of features that you're feeding into it, and you have to choose the feature.
Yes.
Okay.
We can detect, for example, volume of actions for example, but objects, AWS, doesn't do so.
Okay. I got you.
That's a limitation.
I got you. You dislike the limitation of I have to know exactly the use case. I have to select exactly the right feature, and I have to exactly make sure it's the right confidence. And guess what? None of the vendors would give me that. So I freaking built it in-house, right? Fantastic. Anybody else cares to share something about their anomaly detection? Yes, sir. Tons of false positives. Yes, yes. Everybody came here to this quote AI workshop, right? You all got baited because AI is AI is essentially just a lot of false positives. So why did you come? You came to see what is the new false positive that will mess your life up, that your boss would buy or would ask you to implement it, and it would mess your life up. Anomaly detection used to be the biggest freaking thing in the SOC. And now, whenever I have a bunch of blue teamers, who the hell uses anomaly detection? There's like 2 guys. Where the hell is all the anomaly detection? Where the hell did the investors put their money? It's like a shit ton of vendors out there that sell anomaly detection. I don't know, user, entity, behavioral analytics. This sounds fucking amazing. Does it work? I don't know, man. It sounds amazing, right? So why does it not work? Are we picking on vendors? No. It just doesn't work because it has a lot of false positives. What the hell does that mean? It means that I can't tune it. And why do I like my rules? Why do I like my investigative playbooks? God damn, I can tune it. It's so obvious I can tune it. I can freaking see it, and it's a freaking search. It's so tunable, it's so understandable, it's so auditable. I don't care if I'm stuck in the 80s. I will just keep on using my rules and my stuff because I trust them. And if I fuck up, I get fired. So I'll use whatever I can trust. You guys can have your LLMs, you can have your fun elsewhere in sales or in something else, but don't bring that shit to the SOC. So great points. False positives, keep that in mind, right? A lot of shit that is false positive, I don't know how to tune it, it's not explainable, right? I have to tune a weird knob and I don't know how to explain it. And if I really, really care about explaining it, I will build it myself and I will choose a feature. I will literally say this event has some sort of like user business unit. Usually the business units that are involved in, I don't know, like exfiltration tickets are customer service. If I find an HR in there, that's an anomaly, right? So you're essentially just like, you're down to the freaking use case itself that you might as well write the rule, right? Like all of the vendors would give you this risk-based rule alerting, like if this rule is 5 out of 10, this rule is 5 out of 10, they happen within 5 minutes, call them 10 out of 10 and send me a Slack message, right? So you can get away around this without anomaly detection, but you probably had to build anomaly detection because, you know, the boss likes it. But anyways, so we're back to essentially the challenges of AI. It's unexplainable. Is there an AI that's explainable? Is there an AI that can help me with less false positives? We'll answer that in a second, but first, let's talk about how do we map things for the people that don't know what's up. If I get a layer 1, you guys are probably not layer 1s, but if I get a tier 1 and they don't know what's up and they're an analyst, and I give them an investigative playbook or a Sigma or whatever, I will always see what I call an attack technique. What the hell is an attack technique? It helps them answer the what. What is happening in this alert? And this is just a common knowledge, like framework, like some sort of just a common understanding of what the hell is phishing. This is phishing. I can just click on phishing, and left to right there's enablement and causality, and when I click on something there is phishing, and everybody knows what the hell is phishing because I can go to this website, I know exactly how to deal with it, I know how to mitigate it, I know the examples, and I know what the hell is phishing, right? So that essentially is a good place to have people refer to if they're layer 1. I'll turn it back to the execs. Do you have some sort of a difficulty getting people in security, like some sort of like difficulty of getting the right talent in your organization for cybersecurity? Is that an issue? And if so, what kind of things did you do to make sure that this kind of challenge is handled?
So, unfortunately, you touched on it a few minutes ago. The biggest difficulty is trying to convince the board, the CEO, you know, the marketing people, the guys who like fluff and stock prices and they don't care about operations. It's trying to convince those people that you need a team, you need the right team, you need the smart team. They want to outsource everything because, oh, it's taken too long to find the right people. We don't have the patience to do a buddy system and train people and bring them up to speed and teach them on corporate, you know, values and what, you know, how our organization works best. So my biggest challenge is trying to get the right funding, trying to get the people that are qualified for the price that I'm, for the small purse that they're giving me to fill those positions. And then, like you said, they want a unicorn. Well, I have a unicorn, but now I can't afford him because now the guy costs $200,000. And you're giving me a budget of $50,000. Like, seriously? That's embarrassing. I can't even offer the guy a job, or $60,000 or $100,000, right? Like, the more money they give me, the more they want out of this person. They want this person to do 5 people's job. Well, how effective is this person now that they're doing 5 people's job? 3 people quit, and now more people are going to quit. Now it's a revolving door, and then you wonder why we're getting hacked or compromised, because some of those people, I mean, how many people know that a lot of the compromise happens from internal, right, within? You piss enough people off, they know your environment in and out. They can create a user and give them super privileges. I mean, I've witnessed this several times in my career, right? You know, one of the accountants had super privileges. Who gives a freaking accountant super privileges, right? And so this guy comes in, now he's already switched the accountant's password. He comes in through the accountant, nobody sees that, and does whatever the hell he wants, has a field day. So those are some of my challenges as far as trying to get the right people for the right price, and then trying to keep them by not having them do 20 different jobs, right? And so it's a very revolving door. Yeah, it's a very hard challenge to meet from an executive perspective. Thank you.
100%. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it, Harry. George, do you have something to add as well? All right, there we go.
Thank you. Yeah, on the staffing issue, I think what's important is, first of all, develop your own pipeline. Right, so if you are the leader, or if you're a manager of a SOC or a security team, you have to go out there to events. You should be going to events anyway, because you need to inform yourself as to what's going on. And you got to meet your suppliers and all that, and see what the new vendors are, and constantly do discovery and prospect. But you should also be meeting a lot of people. You should also be, as part of your give back to the community, engaging with a lot of students and new grads, because those are the guys and gals I should say, who are the most talented, who have the most fresh knowledge, and who have the most energy oftentimes, because their age and where they are in their lives, to contribute to your shop the way that you need them to. Now, you have to look at the problem in two ways. One, if you're hiring for a junior role, like Ease is right, the level of what quote unquote junior is now, it's gone up, right? It's not what it used to be before, but that's okay. You can still control that, because there are people who are meeting that benchmark, that threshold, and you just have to go out there and find them. Now, if you are engaging in the community and you're building a strong network, you're able to find good candidates based on the relationships that you have with them. It's not about just, do you have these certs? Have you done these CTFs? Can you show me these things? That's all fine and good. What I care about is, do you fit within a team? Can you understand a clear set of instructions? Can you deliver on a project on time, right? Can you work well with others? Are you the type of person that we can actually invest time in as an organization to develop you into higher levels or different jobs outside of the SOC? There has to be a deal between you and the new hire that I would want you to commit 2 to 5 years in my organization. I want a succession plan, a path for you to go as high as you can go within the time that you're with us. I want to enable you with training opportunities, with conferencing opportunities, that even if you're not going to stay with our organization after a year, 2 years, 5 years, your next job is something a level up and something great. You have to give talent that kind of promise to get good talent to come and work with you for something other than a 10th percentile or 90th percentile salary rate. It's not just about money. It becomes only about money when it comes to talent, when you're not willing to offer the talent any sort of growth or any sort of care. When you get people that you are actually invested in turn, they will be invested in your organization. And so they will go the extra mile, they will do the extra audits, they will do the extra checks, they will have due diligence when they're managing devices and they're managing accounts. But again, this is a human relationship. It's a partnership that you're creating. And it comes, as my friend Harry's pointed out, when you're dealing sometimes with boards that have their, we'll call it budgetary challenges in games, which quite frankly, they're games, right? You build up a good team, you build up a great capability, it takes you a couple of years, and then hey, because the company is not performing financially well, guess what? Your budget slashed. Guess what? Those people that were your close friends that you had to hire, you have to fire them now. How great does that feel, right? And that simply is a misalignment between the business and your strategic roadmap. We all get burned by this. I've been burned by this. But you have to understand, one, it's a business, so you shouldn't take it personally. And two, you should always be training your people to train up for the next job. Those are the types of people who are going to be very well committed to you, and they're not going to always want to go for a super high paying position it's going to blow up your budget, so you won't be able to do it. They're going to want to stick with you, and it's going to create that two-way loyalty. I know it's not quite like the enterprise type answer that a lot of business people would like, But really, I'm trying to say that the solution to the security problem is as much a human one as it is a technical one. Thank you very much.
So I love this because a lot of the SOCs that I look at, their KPI is MTTD, MTTR. I don't know what the. I don't know why anybody would use that as a KPI. A true KPI is when you look at a ticket. Did you do any process improvement? You have all of this context of the ticket loaded in your brain. You have the problem completely in your brain. Why the hell don't you take a few more minutes, take 15 more minutes, take 30 more minutes? I don't care about mean time to bullshit. I care about, did you take the time to optimize my detection engineering? Did you take the time to, in the ticket, comment about how could this rule improve? How can this AI improve? How can this playbook improve? How could things improve? Do you take the time on Friday instead of closing, oh, I closed 50 tickets on Friday? I don't give a shit. Did you give some time to innovate on Friday? Do I have an innovation Friday? Or am I just hiring people that have been doing this all the time the same way, and when I get an intern who doesn't know shit, they have to do it the same exact way? Do I get some fresh perspective, someone who like just recently graduated, has a little bit of data science maybe, coming in as a data science intern, and they look at this as a data problem, right? And they don't have to follow what the SOC does. They don't have to follow the weird KPIs most companies would put. I'm happy that these guys are here because you don't see a lot of Fortune 500 CISOs or CSOs or whatnot that don't care about mean time to detect, right? Like, and usually these people are not very easy to find. So I put them right here. If you guys look for jobs, you know, they're right here, and we have them on camera saying that they don't care about, you know, they don't care about all the useless crap. They care about the innovation, and they're ready to take a step and, you know, like figure how things could be better. And that's the right leader you want to work for. But anyways, enough on people. Let's go back to the investigations in terms of technical process. So investigations usually look for not just one technique anymore. I'm not just looking for phishing. Give me the rest of the freaking story. And there's something called the MITRE ATT&CK flow. MITRE ATT&CK flow came from MITRE. The guys that gave us essentially MITRE ATT&CK techniques and tactics and whatnot, they also figured, you know what, if it makes a story and it looks like a flow, let's call it a flow. You know, like things are not one incident anymore. Why the hell do I have tickets about like one incident? I have a ticket that says, oh, this admin did something. But this is not how the board is told about. This is not what a CISO would come here and tell you about. They tell you about, oh, this guy started with that, and then this, and then this, and then that, and then 1 week later we did this, 1 week later this happened, and we found this, and we found that. That's the whole story. Do you have that in your tickets? Nope. What do you have in your tickets? One single, siloed, disjointed, disparate incident that we have decided is so fucking spicy, it will be called a notable alert or whatever the hell. And maybe I have a correlation search, maybe I have something that would put two of them together. Did any of these guys talk about two things? Like 20 freaking events, 20 freaking alerts, and anything of that nature that they would speak about, right? So how do we get ever 20 alerts? When you talk to them, they tell you, oh, my guys are the best. I have the best freaking team. They were in the right mood that day to ask the right questions and swivel their chair across multiple data places, and they found the freaking needle on the haystack. Guess what? We worked on it, right? And that's the ultimate unicorn if you have that person that can be in the right mood every day, ask the right questions in terms of who, when, what is relevant, make an investigation, have a hypothesis, validate, query the right places, find the right data, put the whole story together, keep the context in your brain for long enough to fill up a ticket, take amazing documentation, and on top of that, if you have some time, tune it. And guess what? That doesn't happen in an MTTD of, I don't know, 5 seconds or whatever bullshit people are talking about. There's no such thing as MTTD when you're talking about an actual thing that you saved like a whole day about, right? Like it's about depth. It's not about, I was quick, I finished 1 million tickets. So how do I get this depth on scale? And how do I get this depth with interns? It's a big data problem. Let's talk about data science. So here's how. Let's figure out the what. So the what is a MITRE ATT&CK technique that is relevant to this event? Well, do you guys have MITRE ATT&CK techniques in a lot of your events? Anybody? Yeah? From where? What data source? What data source do you collect your MITRE ATT&CK stuff from? Is it like an EDR?
Yeah, from the attack, the EDR will actually go.
Nice. So a lot of vendors today would have MITRE ATT&CK techniques, and these are fantastic rule sets, right? But were they built for cross correlation with other data sources? They were built for marketing and dashboards. Do I have them on all of the data sets? No, we have them only on EDRs for now. Maybe some NDRs. Do I have them on syslogs, PowerShells, I don't know, sysmons? Do I have them in my identity stuff? Does my CASB tell me? Does my cloud tell me? Does my cloud shell or cloud watch from AWS tell me? No, no. All of these things are up to the analyst who's a unicorn who would look at the data and they would immediately be like, oh, this is what's happening. This is how it's relevant to this other thing. Okay, I got it in mind. This is technique something, initial access probably. This is something, lateral movement. These are kind of enabling to each other. I need to look in between for some sort of something else that happened in the machine. And that's the right question, right? The right question comes with a shit ton of experience that you do this in mind. But I'm a dumb data scientist. I can't do it in mind. So how am I going to do it? I'll figure out something, but I need to use some sort of a way to get me a MITRE ATT&CK technique for every single data point. Because I don't want unicorns in my SOC. I want them all dumb like me, and I want them to be interns who have absolutely no experience in anything, and they would still know what is the sequentiality and causality between data points that are completely heterogeneous. I have stuff in my data set that is coming from a million different sources. There is no consistency in between them if they have MITRE ATT&CK, and guess what? We don't have enough MITRE ATT&CK. So ideally, I'll do this myself, and I'll tell you how on the next slide, but what else should I do? Now that I have this magical MITRE ATT&CK technique for every single thing, now I know the what. I know what is happening in every single event log and alert, right? That's already pretty nice. But can I also know the when and who and what else is relevant? You can. What things do I have to look at? Well, like you probably want to look at the entities involved. People talk a lot about the entities involved. What do I look at in the entities involved? Well, how are they relevant to each other? If you're an experienced SOC analyst, you have already talked to every single business unit here over multiple incidents before, and you already know the relationships between them. Does anybody here have a proper CMDB that they like again? No. So all of this is stuck in their brain, right? You probably have a good CMDB. Okay, I love it. That one out of a whole crowd, right? Like 2 out of a whole crowd. So CMDB is not very effective at giving that data. But if we have that data, if we invest in the process to maintain some sort of an asset inventory, again, no products. You can literally sit down and put it in a Google Sheet, literally. But you just need the people and process, not the technology, to put it in there. You can have a very cheap technology, just go out there like like an open VAS or something, like an Nmap, and do quick asset inventory and populate a CSV. There's no actual need of technology there, it's just a process. Can I do this every fucking month? Can I do this all the time? And can I populate it? And do I know every service account, who owns it, who admins it, who manages it? What entities are involved? Who is the manager? Who's the leader? Who's the admin? What was the last time this machine was patched? What software is running on this machine? If I see a database, like a database traffic on some machine, do I know why? Like, if I know that this machine has SQL and this other machine has Mongo database, that's pretty good. I can use that. If I put it in a search, I will not get an identical thing, but it's similar. And that's why at the bottom of that slide, I have similar ones. So a MongoDB tag on an endpoint is similar to a PostgreSQL on another endpoint. And hence there is similarity that I would like to use, right? A similar business unit, a similar patching date, a similar something. So there is similarity. And today in the SIM, guess what? Do we have similarity? We have common characteristics. If I'm looking for a search query, I'm looking for port 80. Like I'm looking for PID 155. I'm looking for process name X dot whatever, right? Like one thing only. And these are the tools that they give us to find all of the similarity in the world and finding these stories. So ideally, I have a tool that can capture similarity, and I can capture similar endpoints through these characteristics of the entities. Okay, so entities are endpoints, identities, and whatnot, and ideally I have these characteristics somewhere in an okay CMDB. So I figured, put everything in one place, put essentially some sort of an okay identity or asset inventory, some sort of it, and you also have a shit ton of event attributes, right? What kind of event attributes do you have? Anybody use an EDR? Okay, a lot of EDRs. Okay. So EDRs give you a lot of, I don't know, like process, parent process, like PowerShell that they've seen. Anybody uses a syslog, Windows event log, these kind of things. Okay, logs give you a hell lot of data. They have a lot of attributes, right? Anybody uses like, I don't know, vulnerability data? Vulnerability data, okay. You kind of know what's vulnerable, what's not vulnerable. You have Cloud Shell, like Cloud Trail, Cloud Logs, Cloud Watch, okay, a shit ton of Cloud Logs. You know what identity is doing what identity is doing whatever, like who deployed what. So there's a lot of data that you have, and it has a lot of attributes. And are we using those today? Not really, we're using them in searches. If we were to be a little bit different, and we would think about this completely differently, as if we're not in the SOC, or as if we're like, it's a big data problem, we would use some models. So let's talk about some models that we can use for the first problem. The first problem was essentially find me an attack technique in every single thing I give you. If I give you a sentence, an English sentence, find me a technique, right? How many different messages or logs or alerts can I ever have in my SIM? 10,000, 20,000, 30,000? Probably less. So technically, I don't even need a model for this. If I have this process of thinking, I can have it in a sheet, and I can have my, my senior folks go in there and annotate it. I can have an LLM do it as well, and I can have my senior, tier 3s or whatnot, just double check it, right? And now I have a legacy that will outlive me and outlive my tenure at this company of now everything has a freaking TTP. Like, I don't care what SIM you're using. Scissors always change the SIM. They change the EDRs, they change the NDRs. There's a lot of politics, a lot of business in this, right? However, if I want to leave some sort of legacy, I have to stay away from vendors as much as possible and do something that can outlive, which is a process. If I have a process of having some sort of an automated asset inventory, it's a nice process. Ideally, open source, use Nmap for it. No one can ever, not have enough budget for that. And ideally, document it and leave it running. And that's a legacy that you left there forever and ever and ever. If you do that with an LLM and have some sort of an attack technique, CSV, that everything in the SIM now or anything in any ticket in the world already has a technique in your SOC, you have a legacy that allows people to essentially be noobs and come to your SOC and understand stuff. They can actually understand what the hell is going on, right? So how do we get a consistent, essentially, draft of what are some techniques that I can use? You use an LLM. You can use ChatGPT, and you can give it essentially like a quick search question. Essentially, like here's ChatGPT 4.0. I can ask it like, I don't know, like let me pull one of the examples that we built our own LLM on. So run DLL 32 adds the registry. Sorry, I'm typing with one hand, so run key. What is the technique, right? And I can do this in a lot of different ways if I want to get creative, but I'm showing you the lowest effort. The lowest effort version of this is just ask ChatGPT, and it will tell you, okay, the technique is whatever. Does it even tell you the right MITRE attack technique? Gives you a lot of data. Tells you persistence, tells you execution, tells you T1547, boot or login auto start execution. Has absolutely nothing to do with auto start, but sure, it can work. Registry run key, that's fine. That's acceptable. If I want to do a little bit better and I'm a data scientist, well, I can actually, build my own LLM. What's an own LLM? I can get an LLM that instead of was trained on all English text, it was trained on the stuff you never read. In your bookmarks, all the slides, all the talks, all the books, all the papers you never read. Give that to the LLM, that's an unlabeled corpus, and it will now know a lot of context about cybersecurity words. And then you can have a small labeled corpus as well. And we did this, and this is open source, by the way, and you can use it. But essentially, you can give it a small labeled corpus of things that you trust are actually consistent and are actually high quality, essentially, like MITRE attack techniques with alert. Anybody here trusts an LLM? A little bit. We got half. Half a person trusts an LLM. We don't have a single, yeah? Yes, we can throw a rag on it. Do we trust it with a rag? Oh, we got another half now, okay. So why don't we trust LLMs?
Hallucinations.
Yes, they hallucinate. They're not consistent. However, if you can change a little bit in their API, just a little teeny tiny bit, like if I go here to, I don't know, like Hugging Chat, I probably have a link somewhere here. You guys are familiar with Hugging Chat? Okay, we got one person familiar with Hugging Chat, that's fantastic. So Hugging Chat is essentially a place where you can kind of make your own bot And you can do it from your phone. You don't have to be a data scientist. I realized when I did the poll that you guys are not data scientists, so that's fine. You came here in a car, you're not a combustion engineer or researcher, right? Like, you don't have to be a data scientist to play with data science. So here's how I would do it. I would just go there, assistants, it's free, completely free. I'm not sure why am I plugging them, but for what it's worth. Here, for instance, I made a little bot, and in this bot, the important part is you would give it some sort of system instruction. So this is a system prompt. It's kind of like a RAG, but just like one prompt. And then you give it some sort of URLs that it can use for its search. And then here you can see the URLs that I gave it. They're all like URLs about, you know, like stuff in cyber and OSINT and whatnot. There's so much URLs, I probably can never show you all of it, but it's open source and you can go grab it. But essentially what's important here is you can go to the assistants and you can make your own. And why am I showing you all of this? Get to the point. Well, you see this? You can do whatever model you like. Let's choose a llama. Everybody likes a llama because it's cute. Or let's use, I don't know, like a smaller one. And in this setting, you see something called temperature. Temperature is essentially how the hallucinations happen. If you drive the temperature all the way to 0, this shit is going to be the stupidest thing in the world, but it will be deterministic. It will be same input, same output every single day. Same input, same output every single day. Now you can kind of trust it that it wouldn't change its mind every now and then. It would lose its quality because it's not a specialized AI anymore, and it cannot guess anymore, but it's decent. It's a decent starting point, and it's consistent. So if you're asking me how do I do this without using your open source shit, I just want to do it on my phone while I'm traveling back to the SOC. Pull up your phone, get a Hugging Chat, free account, make an assistant, choose any of these models, choose all of them, why not? Put 0 temperature and give it a few messages that you can deduct from your SIM, like how many unique alerts and messages do you have, like descriptions? 1,000, okay, put in a CSV, make one of these bad boys, give it to them, and they can essentially just give you 1,000 tags of MITRE-ATT&CK techniques, and boom, bada boom, you finished it on your phone. Even better, use the one that we built. It's open source and it's free, and you can figure out exactly, like it's right here. It's assistant, boom, attack llama. We have the offline version as well, but you can also find it on my GitHub. You can find like a million things. We also have like a completely overworked version of this where we built our own BERT. Instead of a Hugging Chat, you can find it on GitHub. It's our own BERT. You can go GitHub/Pianta, our own BERT, and we just like gave it an unlabeled corpus, a labeled corpus. We did the whole thing. But long story short, now you have MITRE-ATT&CK techniques. You use some NLP, and guess what? You use the LLM, so you can go to your boss and be like, dude, I use AI. So more power to you. However, this is how it would look like. You would have some sort of sentence that goes in, some sort of technique that comes out. You would have a CSV of techniques, and you would give it back to the SIM, and now your SIM has literally techniques for every single thing in the world. Logs, alerts, events.
So just out of curiosity, the output comes out as a list?
Yes.
Are there cases where it's more than one tactic or sub-technique?
Oh, we got a data scientist in the room. Okay, so here's what's up. This script that I'm running here essentially has a threshold that says if you are 99% sure or more, print out the technique. But this is not how machine learning works. Machine learning is probabilistic, so it would be like, dude, I think it's T1218, like 99.5%, but I also think it's 85% for this other thing, like T1566. But I hide everything under 99, and I just show you 21218. And you're like, oh, yeah, okay. But technically, you can have the entire probabilistic tree of various classifications, and you can see the entire thing, right? You don't have to choose one thing. How would you use that is essentially if you have a data scientist in the room to help you out, because then they can kind of like build a lot higher accuracy on top of it. But if you don't, like the rest of the world, you don't have data scientists because they think they're hot shit and they ask for $500,000. Don't have a data scientist. Get a summer intern data scientist, right? And have them do some basic stuff. And guess what? Basic is good. We're using 80s technologies. We're fucking using queries and more queries that we call playbooks. And it's 2024. Have them do anything, and guess what? It'll be better. You just have to use the right things. So one right thing is get me techniques. I don't care how. I don't care what AI. I don't care if you do it yourself, annotate it. Just get me techniques, right? So technology aside, get me techniques. If you want to spend a lot more time on technology, there's a talk where I actually explain how to do this like very, very nicely in our open source, and you can refer them back to my LinkedIn or whatnot. I'll give you some cards. But if you have the data scientist to do version 5 of this, I'll help them out. But version 0.1 is just as good because you don't have anything. we're running 80s kind of detections here. Okay, now that we have this, any questions about this, by the way, before I move on to the next models? No questions. I either completely explained it or yes. What am I testing this against? Nothing. Because most people don't have an actual data set. If you're asking me, how do we test it? We actually had a human being sit down and make a data set that we trust completely. How did we do that? We first hired a SOC. That was a terrible idea. It had to be one person because it had to be consistent. And then the one person took a very long time, and guess what? They're not consistent. Every day is different. So we deleted everything they did, and we told them write regular expressions. So now every time they write an annotation for something, like they say, oh, run DLL as the registry run key is 21218. You have to write the regular expression. So tell me why in this you decide it's 21218. And they kind of say, the word registry, the word run together, maybe the non-existence of the word auto start, the non-existence of the word whatever, they have to keep themselves consistent with a humongous registry, regular expression list of stuff to keep themselves consistent. And that's one human being. And they're probably watching this, and thank you, Omar, like you're fucking fantastic. But because this person was hired for like 2 years, and every time they give us a data set, we throw it. They're not consistent. We were learning how humans are terrible at this. So most people will not test it ever. Most people will just be like, this is better than nothing. But if you're a data scientist, you need a consistent data set, and guess what? All the data sets out there of EDRs building MITRE ATT&CK, it's marketing, it's bullshit. None of it is good. You get someone who is actually hired for this 2 years, you learn a lot. It's down the rabbit hole. But this is open source. You don't have to do it yourself. Just use our models. It's free. We'll never charge you. But yeah, any other questions? Yes, sir.
So what data sources? So like run DLL throws you ads, is it like a specific string that will be generated from a specific source platform?
Yeah, I'm not sure what sources brought these up. I think like these are just like stuff that we scraped out of whatever data sources, but our thing has like a shit ton. Like if you go to Splunk Attack Range or Detection Lab, Olang, like any of these open source emulation platforms, you have like 1 million data sets. You can also download bots, version 1, bots version 2, version 3. There's shit ton of data sets, and they have so many sources. If you put them into one focal point, like let's say S3 or whatever the hell, like even local, and you just look at all the JSONs, and you're like, damn, okay, these JSONs have some sort of string that looks like this. I can parse that string, right? I can parse that string out, and I can be like, okay, all it takes here is ET scan potential SSH scan. Sure, why not? And I can be like, okay, this is the thing I'm going to tag, and this is the signature that I will always tag with a technique. Why not? Also, if you use an LLM, there is no reason whatsoever to not feed the entire JSON. Why the hell are you just feeding a text? But for us, in our specialized LLM, we've trained it on that because we're super fucking consistent with like stuff, and we're like very, very articulate about stuff. But if you want the version 1 or version 0.1 even, is feed the entire JSON to an LLM. Like the entire thing. Like you download it from your Splunk, send the entire thing to an LLM, and it will tell you, okay, when you see something along the lines of this, this is the technique. You can even do it in real time. Like we actually have an architecture where people do it in real time, and they feed the entire JSON, and it looks like this. Like in real time, as you get things from your SIM, from NDR, Cloud Access, whatever the hell you use, everything has to go through that technique detected LLM, right? Because it's better than nothing. And it can take the context of the entire JSON, why not? And it's free. Not really free. If you want it to be local, you have to pay AWS Bedrock, I don't know how much for any of these models. LLMs are expensive, man. GPUs. But you can always do a local one. You can use Olama. I want to plug Olama because I like them and they're open source and they're nice. So use Olama and get a local one. Why not? Again, GPUs. Get a quantized version so that you're not spending all your money on GPUs. But yeah. A version 0.1, if you don't have the budget, is no LLM and just ChatGPT, nothing local, just a regular LLM online, Hugging Chat or something like that. Yes?
When you talk about putting in a JSON log, it's got a bunch of person that might have data for corporation. What do you do about the data security?
You have to have a way to sanitize it. The way I would sanitize it is I would remove all of the timestamps and I would remove all of the endpoints. You only need to understand what the hell triggered in the alert if you're an LLM doing this, and if you're not hosted on my own premise. If you're not on my AWS, if you're not on my machine, and I'm giving you data out of my SOC, I better strip it of every single user, identity, entity, endpoint, whatever the hell. Strip off the time, just give them the name and the port and whatever the hell that can help them contextualize what is this and what's going on. But you're giving them one at a time. techniques are one at a time. Like you cannot really get a technique if you give them like 20 at a time. Like which one do you want a technique for, right? 20 at a time. Now we're talking about an actual incident, not a single like isolated, event or alert or whatever. Any other questions? Yes.
Is there a way to work around using this in threat detection engineering models instead of like being generated?
Yes. Yes. So here's a better idea, much better idea. We should not tag our events. We should tag the rule set that makes the events. So where are these events coming from? My Sigma alerts. Good. You have the Sigma alerts. Tag the Sigma alerts before running them. Now the Sigma alerts do not have a weird technique that a weird author put one day when they were writing it. It has a consistent technique that one thing that tags all of your Sigma alerts put, right? Even the Splunk playbooks and whatnot, when they're tagging them, you can see the author. Every time it's a different author. It's just crowdsourced, which means no quality, no consistency. Maybe some very high quality. I don't want to badmouth anybody, but it's not consistent. This is not the same person that wrote the rest. So I have like a bunch of stuff that has really good techniques, a bunch of stuff that has completely bullshit, and I don't know which is which. So I would rather have a much lower quality that is consistent. Yeah, 2 years after you do that completely in-house, you learn consistency. Like consistency. It doesn't matter if it's high quality. I don't care. Any other questions? But that's a fantastic idea. Just if you have the rule sets, tag the rule sets. There's only once, instead of tagging it all the time. But the thing that is for all the time is like MSSPs. They don't know what kind of rule set would come up ever. But yeah, I don't know if MSSPs actually, like a lot of MSSPs would be interested in kind of like innovating stuff. But also the business plays in, they want to make more tickets instead of less tickets. So I don't know. But anyways, any other questions about the classification piece? All the LLMs. It's 2024. You have to ask a lot of questions about LLMs. People have to put LLMs on the screen, otherwise they get tomatoes thrown at them. So. Yeah. If I ask these guys about LLMs, damn, man. They're probably deploying LLMs all over the place. Actually, I should actually do that. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about where LLM can help in business? Not in SOC. Don't talk about SOC. But LLM probably helps a lot even in reporting, right? Like LLM actually has some pretty good, decent stuff in reporting. You want to share a little about that? Go for it. Let's do it.
Yeah, with LLMs, it's actually it's really interesting what you can do and what you can use them for. When it comes to actual reporting and business value and what you see in it, it just cuts down on, I don't know how else I'd call it, initial draft work. Realistically speaking, if I have to produce a policy document, if I have to produce something in Confluence, if I have to produce some kind of business logic report, I can run the initial draft through a prompt-based, like a GPT LLM. That'll produce for me an initial documentation, which it's going to be generic. Like what you have to do is you take that documentation and then you amend it to your organization specifically, right? But it does like 70% of the work for you. You just have to figure out what are the specific parameters for your organization, what's the data, what's the numbers that you're playing with. But in terms of the actual content, you don't need to spend your time digging around Google to find definitions for things or to actually find certain pieces of information. Where you still have to find a little bit more work though is when you want to put like charts, graphs, lucid charts, that kind of thing. You still have to custom build those. But in terms of your drafting process, you shouldn't be drafting almost anything organically anymore. You should be using an LLM to produce your initial draft copies of stuff as a matter of efficiency so you can get more things done quickly.
100%. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I second that. Reporting is all about this life. Yes. So a lot of SOCs ask their people to write reports. When you find something. Does anybody like writing reports? LLM helps a lot in that. It doesn't have to be explainable or auditable or configurable to write me a report, right? Just has to write it. Do you want to share any LLM kind of stuff? Any LLM kind of stuff? All right, everybody's scared of LLMs. Okay, my bad. I scared you guys. 100%. So it's all about the use case. It's not about the.
I could say like about policy. Like I don't let.
Oh yeah.
They're not authorized to communicate with the open web.
Nice. Okay.
So in terms of the actual security policy, if I really bake down. Every organization, when in terms of creating security policy for LLMs,
really what it comes down to for most organizations, you just can't train it using open internet information. You can't let it talk to the open web if you're running proprietary or secret information through it. At the end of the day, that's kind of the state of maturity that we're at in terms of securely and safely implementing LLMs inside environments. But I think that's just a phase one. I'm interested to see what the new technology, the new generation of things coming out is going to provide in terms of providing greater segmentation of that data, preventing any sort of leakage or contamination.
100%. That's an amazing point. Yeah, an LLM, if it's not hosted on your stuff, it's giving your data somewhere for training. So keep that in mind. But yeah, LLMs have fantastic use cases in reporting and like policy generation and whatnot. They help a lot on the management side. In the SOC, I actually think they can help a lot as well in giving you feedback on your detection rules. Remember when we were talking about Sigma rules, and you brought up the point, that was a fantastic point. Like your detection rules, guess what? Like an LLM can actually help you make them consistent. Who the hell wrote your detection rules? A lot of different people. Are they writing raw searches? Raw searches are more expensive than data model searches. Like if you're searching for the word 8.8.8.8 and everything, that's not as good as searching in the IP field for 8.8.8.8. And then you come up later and you tell the boss, you know, like QRadar is so slow, man. Like, so slow. Your searches are pretty bad. But they cannot know that. They just think that, you know, it's IBM's fault. Might be. but you know, like, your searches can be more efficient. Who can help you with that? LLM. Your code could be reviewed. Code review can happen with LLMs. LLMs have fantastic code review stuff. That's why we have ATT&CK, right? The cyber challenge. Because I've seen a lot of papers and I've worked on a lot of them where, you know, like the LLM just takes all of the code and it predicts the next line. The next line is different from the line that you have. Well, it's kind of anomalous. Why is it different, right? So AI can help a lot in helping the juniors write better queries. You have a junior person in your SOC and you tell them to, you know, process, improve your detection engineering, contribute to the detection engineering. They're scared. They don't know what the hell is going on. But if they have an LLM, it can help them, you know, like what the hell is happening here? Well, write me this search in a better way. I think this search keeps on giving me false positives because it doesn't take into consideration this other piece. LLM would help them do that. And if you actually want to do that, forget Hugging Chat, forget ChatGPT, forget everything I said other than Olama. Because you want a local LLM. Don't run any LLM in the cloud. You can use AWS Bedrock, so that's in your own AWS at least. But yeah, whatever cloud you use, run it on your own stuff. Don't trust it running elsewhere, because now your people are using it to actually, you know, tune your stuff and try to kind of perform above their pay grade. But anyways, any other questions about LLMs? We have to, you know, it's 2024, have to talk about LLMs. Fantastic though, for reporting and query generation and a few other use cases. All right, we'll move on. I either was amazing at explaining that first part, or you guys didn't understand anything. Hopefully it works. Second part is essentially, how do we find events that are highly related to each other and form some sort of a causal, I hate to say that word, but a causal kill chain. So how do we make sure that we cluster events that are related? How do I cluster events that are related? And why do I use the word cluster? Well, in chapter 1 in any machine learning book, you have clustering, right? If I'm telling you find an intern instead of hire a Deloitte or EY consultant in data science, I'm telling you about a chapter 1, right? Freaking Deloitte is here. Okay, thank you guys. I appreciate you for doing my taxes. I hope I didn't mess up. No, I don't want to badmouth the consultants. They're just, most people cannot afford a consultant in data science, and they just want to fucking get something rolling in AI in their SOC. You know, like not a lot of Fortune 500s end up at DEF CON at Cloud Village. We are the rest of the people. We're the 99%, you know, not the 1% that have all the budgets. However, if you need that, chapter 1 machine learning book, clustering algorithms, guess what? They're fully explainable. You can fully explain how the hell did something get clustered. And you don't need a data set. It's not supervised. So I don't have to ask you, oh, give me whatever you think is good. No, you don't know what the hell is good. That's why I'm trying to help you. And it's fully transparent. It's not an LLM, and you're like, how the hell did it put it together? Well, you can actually explain how the hell did it get put together. Can I give it feedback? An LLM is kind of hard to give feedback to. I don't know if it would action my feedback. Clustering, yes, you can give feedback. Exactly like how you would tune your rules and playbooks, you can tune clustering. But I don't want to tune it with all the hyperparameters in clustering. I don't understand what's epsilon. I don't understand what k and k means. I don't understand shit in these kind of parameters. That's fine. You can tell the cluster what should be added, what should be removed. Clustering figures it out. Clustering is your friend. and clustering does not cost more than $20 to run on whatever machine, an AWS, because it doesn't need a GPU. No GPU. No GPU. Why not? Hell yeah. Democratize the hell out of this. So find event clusters that are causal and sequential. Okay, so first let's find relevant clusters. Consider that I am a tier 1 SOC and I don't know shit. Do you guys have any guidelines in your SOC? I don't know shit. I just joined your SOC. You're my boss. You're a security engineer. You're a security investigator. You're a cloud security engineer, whatever the hell it is. And I'm telling you, dude, how do I investigate shit? I never investigated anything in my life. Do I have a guideline that's written up on how to investigate? Half? I have half a guideline? There are? Can you talk a little about them?
Yeah, I mean, there should be some standard operating procedures, and you continue to scrub that as you learn more, and as things change, you update that on a regular basis. I would recommend updating that every 6 months or sometimes quarterly. At least look at it and update that so that you have something to give to your newcomers. And then I create a buddy system, so I always have a buddy for every newcomer that comes in, and then teach them the ropes. Okay, here's where all the documentations are. You know, we've all gone through documentation. We may retain 5% of what the heck we just read, right? So that's okay, but you reinforce it with a buddy system so that they've seen it, they've read it, now they're doing it, and then they have a reference that they can go back onto, back and forth. So those are some of the things that do work. And then on top of that, you know, training, right? You continuously train these people, and not just have them have a buddy in SOC, or, you know, I create buddy systems in operations and, you know, in reporting and in different areas on the business side as well as on the technology side, so that they can be successful contributors to the organization. And that's how they grow, and you know, so yeah.
100%. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So we don't really have a lot of investigation kind of documentation, but we do have some sort of a buddy system. We can kind of like understand from the folks, how do they do it. So if someone asks you, how do you investigate, what do you answer? Like, do you investigate an alert or an event based on like the entities involved, based on the CVE involved, based on the business unit involved, based on the process involved? What are you centric on? Are you asset centric? Are you entity centric? Or are you event centric? Do you want to look for similar events across other business units, or do you want to look for what else inside this business unit happened? Depends, right? You can have a million ways. So you essentially put it in a data structure. You tell the clustering, what would you like to get? This is a data structure well known as a knowledge graph. What does this say? It says I essentially have circles and lines. A circle I'm going to refer to as a node, and a line I'm going to refer to as an edge. And this allows me to tell the clustering what do I like. If I want the version 0.0001 of clustering, I go to my GitHub and I find the version 0.001, and it looks something like this. Here are some alerts. They have some features. Here is some sort of a cluster that formed for essentially these alerts and events and logs. And it just tells me, you know, like in 3D, what are some tickets that I should look for. But I didn't tell this thing what should it look for. So it's as good as nothing. Is this any good data reduction? It's okay data reduction. We have nothing to compete with. It's better than nothing. It's better than code a human would do it. Code, hopefully this human learned from another human, learned from half a documentation somewhere. It's better than nothing because it's fully explainable, unlike the human, and it doesn't sleep, unlike the human, and it doesn't hate its job, unlike the human, right? So what you want is essentially some sort of clustering, but ideally if you can do a version 0.2 instead of 0.1, you have some sort of a data structure that tells the cluster what should it be focused on. In this case, the cluster is kind of like CWE or CVE centric, where the nodes are essentially common vulnerabilities and common weaknesses, and the edges are essentially events that involve nodes. I can also have a data structure where, guess what? It's a node as an entity, like this person account is an entity, and this service account is an entity, and these are the nodes. And the edges are this things connecting these entities to other entities, right? So as from this machine, that's essentially his Windows machine that he doesn't pay for Windows on, connected to, I don't know, Google Slides. Sure, that's a Google slide kind of circle, that's an as kind of circle, which has a lot of devices that I gave this guy, including this device that actioned this essentially network flow or whatever. And this event at this time went to Google Slides. Okay, that's a nice data structure. What that essentially teaches the clustering algorithm is you tell me everything that happened on these assets. Anything else that triggers around as is interesting. I don't care about the event, I care about as first. I care about the machine, the entity, the identity first, right? I can change that, I can have multiple clustering algorithms give me multiple stuff, but essentially the next point is, now that you have this knowledge encoded in clustering, you essentially just put them into, you know, like the magic happens in the code, and somehow you have like this 3D kind of thing. You boil down all of these features into like a 3D kind of thing to visualize a cluster, and somehow boom, bada boom, you have clusters and things that are relevant to each other. But how are they relevant to each other? Based on what you wanted them to be relevant to each other on. Which means you somehow changed your process into documenting what's a good investigation. If you don't have that, the second best thing is, do you have historical tickets? Do you have historically, how did you do investigations? Anybody here has historical tickets in their case management? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, half a 5? Half a 5? 6, 7? Okay, why not? Okay. Now you have historical data, you actually have some sort of documentation. You can give that to the clustering algorithm, and you can have relevant tickets. Like, this is a ticket, and by the way, there are similar tickets that happened last year. This seems to be a recurring thing that happens annually. The accountant around tax time goes in and does financial metrics. It always looks like an exfiltration or some sort of insider threat, but it's not. Because the anomaly detection only looks at 30 days, and this happens once a year. So every single year we have to deal with it. But you're the new guy this year, and you just went down the rabbit hole because you didn't know this happens every year. So if I have historical data, kind of have a documentation. I kind of have a documentation. I can put it into clustering again. I can even put it into classification problems. Again, chapter 1, a very basic classification problem. But essentially I can immediately tell, like, you know how you have similar movies in Netflix? Similar tickets. Here are some relevant data points from the cluster that you should probably look at, suggested data points to look at into your investigation. And here are similar investigations before. So you can see how your seniors back then, when they were actually doing the job, they actually investigated. What were their questions? And what did they find? Oh, I did this and I did this, and then I messaged this guy on Slack, and apparently, yes, this guy does this every year, but I tried to contact the anomaly detection vendor that we had at the time. For some reason, they only retain data on 30 days, so the baseline doesn't get there, and every year I have the exact same alert, but here's how I did it, right? So tickets can help a lot. And that's actually the nice process that you can also bank on. If you're one of the few people in this world that have historical tickets, bank on that immediately with clustering and put relevant tickets. If you don't have it and you're one of the normies like me, essentially just have some sort of a process. Document what is a good investigation. Just document something, right? Something else that you can do once you have these clusters and you bank on the fact that now you have techniques and tactics, and someone actually built the entire MITRE attack for something else other than marketing. Now you can actually use it for chaining stuff. You know, the causality of things. When these fine gentlemen were talking about stuff that they saw, they were telling you that story. They were telling you this, that, right? That's the whole story. Can I put that story together in my detection and my correlation? Ideally, right? What is this? This is a finite state machine. We call it in data science, if you're a data scientist or if you want to hire a data scientist and let them watch this, it's called the Markovian essentially chain. You can have a Markovian model or essentially a fancy state machine. Put clusters together once they are relevant to each other, right? If the clusters are relevant to each other and they're enabling each other, they're causal, you just essentially chain them together with this little thing, and now you have incidents that show you stuff across multiple months, multiple machines that are actually causal to each other. Hooray! Why not? So we take this to test and we put 2,500 alerts. They have about 180,000 logs and events with them to help the clustering put it together. Our humans that we like in our SOC put about like one ticket in this data, one single ticket, and they did a fantastic, absolutely fantastic job. I don't badmouth them at all. They're very senior. And they put around 10 things in that ticket. 10 things. These 10 things happen to be what the algorithm found 202 alerts in. These are 8 different tickets that were formed by the clustering algorithm. One of them had 202 alerts put together. The humans put 10. And these are some really good humans who woke up with the right mentality, asked the right questions, and they didn't just brush it off. They could have brushed off the investigation. They did not. They were not told that this is going to be an investigation and data set. They did not brush it off. They brushed off the rest, I guess. But this one, they actually put 10 alerts. How many tickets do you have that have 10 alerts put together? That's a fantastic team. That was a fantastic investigation. And when you put it against the clustering algorithm, it gets you a lot faster. And then we take these and we give them back to the analysts, and they're like, oh, okay. Some of it is garbage, but pretty decent. What can I do with the garbage? If it was an LLM, nothing. If it was an MSSP, nothing. If it was anything else, nothing. If it was a human, maybe just tell them. But they will forget. They don't document shit. None of us document shit in our investigations. But it's a clustering algorithm. Hooray, you have a legacy now. You can actually give feedback to a clustering algorithm, and the next time around, it will actually learn how to do it better. And that's what we did. We gave it investigation feedback. How does the feedback look like? You literally go and you tell it, listen, this cluster is missing these two things. Put them. This cluster should be merged with this other cluster. Good. This cluster should be broken into halves. Good. This other piece is garbage. It's false positive. Put it in the false positive cluster. Good. Why not? A lot of the data that we deal with is false positives, right? Even in your spicy stuff, half of the shit is false positive. Half? 99% of the shit is false positives, right? So cluster the hell out of it and teach the clustering algorithm what it should look for in false positives, and that's how you teach it. You give it the knowledge in what we call a knowledge graph. So how do I give knowledge to an unsupervised machine learning so that it doesn't spit garbage back at me? I give it knowledge in the data structure. If I can give it knowledge in the attributes, and I tell it this attribute is more important than this, and I weigh my attributes, I weigh essentially things like I do in rules and alerts and playbooks, I put a weight, sure, why not? But I can also do a lot more. I can just give it how I think in a data structure, very simply. Again, data science intern can pull this off, and it's open source, so they can pull it off. Any questions about this piece before I move on? Yes.
So you mentioned that there's a mapping for each of the alerts to the higher technique.
Yes.
And then in your knowledge graph, it's also linking on those nodes and edges.
Yep.
So where the CP data comes from, what does that data representation look like?
It's up to you. This is not set in stone. It's just an example. It's up to you. Whatever you want to encode.
Clustering is just essentially unsupervised, determines its own.
It will determine based on what you gave it. So you gave it a blueprint of how you would like your investigations. My investigation is essentially focus on the entity, or focus on the CVE, or focus on the TTP, focus on something. That's my node. And here is my node attributes. I have attributes under every, let's say, node. So if the node is as, it's me, the identity. What are the attributes in the identity? I work for, I don't know, like a business unit called management. You work for a business unit called consulting. Are they relevant? Are they similar? Maybe. If they're similar, my alerts and your alerts are going to be in one ticket. If they are not similar, because you told the algorithm that, by the way, management and consulting are not similar, they're not going to be the same thing. So you have my entity as a node attributes, and you can put weights on that, and you can choose what the hell is a node. So a common example is entity first, because that's what most humans use. Okay, entity first. Forget this slide. Don't look at this slide anymore. Imagine a circle that says identity or entity, and the lines between this circle and other circles are just the events. But now you have events, features, and you have entity features. Me and you are entities, and we share a shit ton of features. We're both at DEF CON, we're both at this place, right? Can you encode that in some sort of a CMDB? Probably. You should probably do it. And now you have, if I got hacked and I go back and there's a weird thing and you have a weird thing, you have that information that says these two weird things, although they're not exactly the same, affected similar folks. We're not similar in any way. We're not identical in any way. You don't work exactly for the same department. You don't have exactly the same computer, but it's similar, right? And this similarity is something that you cannot get without using machine learning. If the rules cannot ever get similarity, what the hell is a similar port? You have to make a list. Port 80, port 81, port whatever. And even in clustering, even in machine learning, you have to tell it that 80 and 81 are alternative ports for HTTP. 79 is not, because otherwise it just thinks it's numbers, and 79 is as close to 80 as 81, right? So you actually have to encode knowledge in whatever you want. And the nice thing about this is you're encoding knowledge based on use cases. You're not encoding knowledge based on rules. You don't have to figure out how to write the rule. clustering, you just tell it what it should be in, what it should be out, and it guesses what to switch at the background, essentially.
So is that completely unsupervised clustering?
Completely unsupervised. The fancy way to call this is knowledge encoded semi-supervised. Why do we call it semi-supervised? Because you kind of give it a cheat sheet. You told it what you like, but is it fully supervised? No, you don't know what's good. You actually don't know what's a good investigation. You can talk about an investigation that you think is a success. Did it include everything? You don't know. You have to send the DFIR team, all the reverse engineers, you have to actually send someone to do complete forensics. And no one does that. Why? I just want to know enough. I don't want to know the entire story. So I never have a supervised data set in SOC.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Questions, concerns, feedback? Yes.
I find that it's kind of difficult to spin up a Bedrock instance, but I really like the idea of clustering. I know I have a couple of clustering operators in my scene, and I was wondering if you could give me some guidance on
Hell yeah.
what I should do.
Hell yeah, yeah. So fantastic question. The question is, my dude, tell me how do I actually action clustering? I probably have some clustering in my SIM. Yes, you do. Every single SIM has clustering. If you're one of the folks that pay a lot of money to Cisco through Splunk, welcome to the Sky Talk. But essentially, there is MLTK, there is DSDL. These are apps that are completely free on Splunk. Guess what? There is free stuff on Splunk. And these free things essentially allow you to run clustering. You will run into the problem of, I want to do better, but a version 0.1 is always good. If you want to do better, you will realize that clustering, much like anomaly detection, you have to choose a feature. The moment you choose a feature, none of these dreams happen. Because which feature are you going to choose? I don't know, it's a shit ton. Like, knowing what feature to choose is like as difficult as writing a rule. And do we have rules to cover these kind of things? No, they're very difficult to write. No one wants to write them. So ideally, you're not choosing a feature, which will limit your success with MLTK and DSDL right away. But if you have a data encoding first, like in Splunk, I think you can call TF-IDF, for instance, and you can encode strings into some sort of a data representation that kind of captures some things so that 80 and 81 and 79 are not equidistant. Now you say 80 is 1, 81 is 2, and 79 is 100 kind of thing, right? Like you can kind of encode it into another data representation where you are kind of telling it what you want. You can get away with that, but it's not straightforward to do it in SIMs. If you want to do a version 0.2, it's a lot easier if you don't even do it as a security guy. It's really a lot easier if you just hire a data science intern who doesn't know anything about security. Really. You are the guy, you are the person who will be asked for security knowledge. They will implement the security knowledge encoding. And use our open source shit. It's already, half of the shit is encoded there. Like just go to docs.sci. I hate to plug like this, but you don't have to pay us. You just have to go to docs.sapienta.com. Half of the shit is open source. Like, you can walk through a lot of different things, like how do I map things, like we have an LLM mapping things automatically for the data model. You can go over the lambdas are all open source, like how do we actually transform data, and first we enrich with technique from the whatever proposed enrich, we create clusters, and you can switch and do whatever you want. You can use your own models, just take all of the stuff that we have and start there. You don't have to start from zero, but yeah, fantastic question. There is a shit ton of stuff. The way I would tell you to do it is use a Jupyter Lab or something very basic and just put the data in one place in JSONs and go from there. I would put everything in JSONs and then I would switch everything into one data model so that my machine learning person is not killing themselves. Put everything in one data model. We do have a project for that on our GitHub. It's called GitHub/Sapienta/LLM Mapper. We have an LLM that maps shit. They're really good at mapping shit. You just give them stuff in a million different data models. They map it to one data model. Pretty efficient. And we have a bunch of regular expressions as well to support it. It's completely open source. I'd love if you can contribute to that. But after I would do that, I would just have a regular Jupyter. You can have a SageMaker. SageMaker is pretty nice on AWS. I wouldn't go for Bedrock. I'd just go for SageMaker because I can do whatever the hell I want. The beauty of SageMaker, and you will see that through our lambdas, is you only pay when they run. So every upload, let's say you upload twice a day, every upload you pay for the compute that was used there. So you can have a fancy GPU and you would still pay for 2 minutes of compute every day. So not too bad. You don't have to rent the entire GPU for the whole day. Yes, sir. Yes, that's a fantastic question. So the question is, do we think that once, like we can do this, and I can see recon, weaponization, delivery, maybe installation, I missed exploitation because it was a 0-day, but that's fine. Or I didn't have coverage, that's fine. And that's actually why you use Markovian, because you can skip things. It's not like a playbook where this has to happen, 5 minutes later, this other thing has to happen. No, it doesn't have to. As long as it's kind of probabilistically going in one place, yes, you can predict the next step. You can predict that, I think based on this, I will probably see some sort of like command and control on these assets given the flow of this, and I can actually predict what's the next step. Why is that useful? You can probably do some fancy stuff if you have like software-defined networks and virtual function, like for networks like NFVs, network functionality virtualization. Like if you can actually have like some sort of an open switch, like switch or firewall or whatnot, you can actually switch the network to like block connections if you think there is a command and control likely happening in real time, and that can increase your MTTR. But yeah, I mean, you can do a lot of cool shit if you can predict the next step. You can send your DFIR team to hunt there. Like your threat hunters essentially are not engaged with the SOC. Usually the threat hunters are like their own thing, They're not really talk to the SOC a lot. We're the people that actually do the operations. We're the low levels. And the threat hunters are like the cool ones that, they're the cool kids. They just hunt whenever something is out there strategically. We can tell them to hunt things that we cannot find, and please go hunt it. Here's a ticket that shows me, this APT is likely doing something in my environment somewhere, but I know that there is one of these 5 techniques involved in one of these 2 assets. They can go into these 2 assets, fire up a Velociraptor or whatever, and OS query, fleet, whatever the hell, right? And they actually go look in these 2 machines for a threat of certain IOCs, of certain IOBs, IOAs, whatever the hell you want to call them. Like they can actually hunt based on the prediction. That was a fantastic question. Thank you. See, you put a bunch of people in one place and you tell them forget your fucking rules, forget your playbooks. We can innovate, like we can get out of freaking 80s technologies if we trust that they're explainable and they're auditable, and our leaders are not going to change the product tomorrow, because it's not a product, it's just a fucking Python Jupyter code sitting somewhere that budget will never touch and vendors will never replace. Any other questions? I can give some examples on the tickets. So we talked a little bit about how do things put together, but the process is essentially, first of all, you get something, uncover the techniques, know the what, and then know the when and the who, and the way to use the when and the who is essentially cluster them and correlate them. What's clustering? You put relevant data points together. What's correlation? You just put if they're sequencing or enabling each other causally together. And then you get 4 terabytes data reduced into a few tickets and your life is happy. So this is one of the things that, would be considered some sort of like a single alert. This is emerging threats from Suricata. In this case, it's aggregated together. We have a technique. Why not? And you can see here the technique got enriched. So we have technique. I have count 15, so I have 15 instances of those that are all put together, and I have the tactic, the stage, the count. So already at this point, I have techniques, and I can show it to a layer 1, and I can tell them, listen, I came back from DEF CON. I had this amazing idea that I will give techniques for everything, and their life gets easier. When they look at an alert, they're like, oh, this technique, oh, okay, interesting. And then your boss would like it, because MITRE ATT&CK is a marketing gimmick, so everything has MITRE. Yes, more coverage, more power to the people. But you actually have MITRE ATT&CK for everything, and they can give feedback, because natural language processing, at least ours, gets feedback. LLM, I don't know. Like our kind of special version of an LLM has feedback, but most LLMs do not have feedback, and that's fine. You can use our special version, it's free and open source. But yeah, we actually don't have a commercial version of this. So the best we got for this is completely free and open source. We have commercial versions for the clustering and whatnot that we use for like Fortune 100s that can pay us a shit ton of money. But like the free version here for this specific one is actually the commercial version. Like this is the state of the art, it's just not paid for anybody. So play around with it. And then we go into clustering. You can build your own. You can use our free version. You can use whatever the hell. You can pay us if you want support. We're like Red Hat. We have everything open source. And then if you want to get support, you can pay us. But if you're not a Fortune 100 and you're sitting at DEF CON, don't worry about that. Just use it, please. And build your own even, right? It's a legacy that can allow you to put You see how many alerts? 0, 1, 30, 31, 36. These are the IDs of the aggregate alerts. These are aggregated like this. Like this is an alert that was aggregated of 15 different alerts. This is what we started with. This is the JSON that we got from Suricatas, Nord, Cisco, whatever the hell you want to call them. But essentially, this is the alert. The alert was this. And we got this, we aggregated it, and we put techniques. And now we have a cluster of 1 million of them. And this is a ticket that you can start at. And guess what? If you have some sort of causality correlation, well, this cluster chains up to like, I don't know how many other clusters. And now your ticket is freaking fantastic. Your ticket is immediately like, you know, fully enriched with all of the stuff that you need to know about. It has the source IPs that are relevant for you because you're entity focused. You like entities a lot. Here's the internal entities. I can get internal entities into my JSON, put it into Jira, put it into whatever the hell you want. It's completely open. You can play along with it as much as you want. You can put in a nice UI. We have a free UI that I'll show you in a bit. I think it's this. So the free UI we have is essentially just showing you assets on the left, shows you the alerts in the middle. So you have like left to right sequentiality, and these colors are essentially the alert boxes, or like essentially aggregated alerts put together. And then on the right you have the timeline. I don't know if I can pull a version of this that I can show you. Probably not. It's fine. I can show you later. You can jump into like my Black Hat keynote on YouTube or something like that. Maybe we can get a card and get into the technical stuff, because I know we only have 10 minutes left. But there's a lot of technical stuff here that you can take on open source, and you can do it on your own. This is not hard. This is a fucking dashboard. But this dashboard essentially tells you that you're no more thinking about the process as one alert at a time. You're no more thinking about notable alert. Hell no. I don't want no notable alert. I want a ticket. Can you get me a ticket? Can I get a ticket? No. Today I can get a ticket. I can get a ticket that maybe has like 2 alerts put together if I have Splunk RBA or whatever they call it. Like if they add up the right way, or if I have an investigative playbook, it gets like 2, 3 data points. But can I get like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 data points like this that are relevant? You really think 2 are everything? You think these guys, when they were talking about incidents that they responded to and they saved the day, they were talking about 2 alerts? No, hell no. The least of these stories had like 50 alerts. So how do we put them together without having the right people in the right mood? Clustering algorithms, put some tickets on there. If you have historical clusters, if you have historical tickets, show the people the historical tickets. If you have documentation, use the documentation in your algorithms, use the historical tickets in your algorithms. Build a legacy that is standalone, and that's why I have this table. All of the shit that you can put into your SIM is not standalone, and that's all the way to the right. Standalone, interoperable. You need shit that's standalone, interoperable. That's your legacy. Your legacy is standalone, interoperable, so that when the exec removes the product, you are not affected. Like if my exec right now removes, I don't know, fucking QRadar, puts Splunk, there goes. There goes like the last year of my life, right? If they remove something, like I'm messed up. Yeah, and then it's more efficient. Searches are not efficient. They cost a lot of money. They make the SIM slow. What is efficient? Not searching. Hell yeah, not searching. Just put it in a clustering. Clustering is way more efficient. Like computer science-wise, this shit is so scalable. I'm telling you, it costs $20 to like cluster 4 terabytes a day, a month. Do you know how much it costs to just run the machine that has the SIM that hosts 4 terabytes and does occasional searches? You know how many searches we put into our SIM? Like maybe 50 a day. I don't want to even tell you how much we pay for the machine, not the license. I can get like a free license on like Elastic or Graylog or something like that, right? The machine, just to search, is freaking expensive. But this is efficient, and I don't have to search, and no human wants to search for all of that. Just cluster it. Is it easy to adapt and maintain? A lot easier than a freaking correlation, hyper-tuned playbook. You see the playbooks that are actually successful that I've shown you, like the ones that are listed and everybody uses them, they have one question. They put 2 data points together. That's it. But if I actually want to put a ticket, I can't write that in a playbook. It's not easy to maintain and adapt. We have a new software that does our database. I can't adapt my rules very easily if it's too long. A cluster would adapt it. I would easily adapt. I just tell it, put this together, put that elsewhere, break this into halves, merge these 2 clusters. It's a lot easier to adapt and maintain as a noob in your layer 1, in your tier 1. Freaking use the tier 1s and then correlate with nuances. What the hell does that mean? The nuances, it's similarity. We're just talking about that. We're vibing about how rules are always looking for an identical match. things are not based on identical match. You know, like I share nothing in my entity attributes identically with all of you, but we're similar enough. Like we kinda installed similar stuff. Our jobs are probably similar enough, but to an ERP system, to a CMDB, to a SIM, like whatever identity information they have on us, an IAM or whatnot, it's not similar. It's either you have access to this cloud like rule or not. Do you have this role or not? Do you have this policy or not? It's identical. But what if I have a similar policy? That cannot be get ever with a rule or a playbook. You need clustering, you need probabilistic machine learning, and you need the ones that are transparent, you need the ones that are auditable, that are maintainable, that are customizable, and are explainable. And that's why LLMs did not take off with Microsoft Copilot, because have an LLM explain shit to you? Not really. Have an LLM take your feedback? Not really. So we go back to the basics, and we look at it as data reduction. Everybody here who had shit to say about UBA, including myself, it was false positives. You're increasing data. Sure. Why do you care about increasing data? Just fucking have data reduction, have data clustering, have data grouping. You should have all of the data. You should have the false positives. Just make a group of false positives. You should have all of the data in your SIM. Ideally not your SIM, but you should put them in an S3 or something that's cheap and have everything. Have literally everything. Why not? Have everything, do not hyper-tune anything. Detect everything. And what do you do with all of that data? Is it just for compliance? No. Operationalize that data. Use it for tactical intelligence. Use clustering. But yeah, clustering is the data reduction tool in AI, and it's in chapter 1, and you can get interns to do that. And they take half a course on Coursera. Seriously, like that's how easy it is. And I know you thought I'm gonna talk about like some crazy fucking AI. Like, no, you got baited. Like you got baited. I'm talking about classical shit because it actually works. Like, and it works. You can read more about what we do. Like it works. And it's so easy, and like we open source the whole thing. Like that's how easy it is. It works. It's just not. It's not fancy. It's not the next Copilot. It's not an LLM that you can have. It's just clustering. Any questions? These are graphics that show you like how much stuff is buzzing all the time with alerts, and we connect them together. Yes. Can you please yell? Sorry, then again.
Okay, so I was going to ask, how are you reviewing these alerts like individually? Or are you? Because I'm almost kind of afraid putting all my trust into like this clustering technique and saying, hey, like what if these, one alerts that are like maybe like 90% or 80% like a false positive, what if it's a true positive? How is that typically like reviewed? Is it usually the incident response team? Is it the threat detection team? Is it like the threat hunters? Like who's doing it? How does that work?
I got you. All right. All right, I'm gonna quickly repeat the question. The question was, okay, I have your clustering thing figured out. Now what? I have a cluster that has a shit ton of data points together. How do I review that? Do I give it to like a different team? Do I give it to a data scientist? Do I give it to like my threat hunter, my CISO? Who the hell is reviewing those? Same people that review the stuff that rules put them together. These are as good as rules because they are fully tunable. You can imagine that, like you had a layer 1 SOC. You can imagine you have a shitty MSSP, and who reviews the stuff that a shitty MSSP puts together? Or like a good MSSP, they don't have to be shitty, they're good MSSPs. But who reviews the tickets that MSSPs put together? Or layer 1 put together? Some sort of layer 2? You give it to the SOC, same shit. And how would they give it feedback? They would essentially say, oh, this ticket, you say it's relevant to this other historical ticket? No, it's not. And that would learn that this is not. And it would be like, okay, this ticket, you gave me 100 relevant points. Dude, only like 5 of these are actually relevant. It would learn. Good. It's not about saving you time in tuning. It's about having something to tune. It's about having something. You actually don't have something to tune. And LLMs are not tunable. What do you have to tune? It's a bunch of rules, that's it. And they don't give you enough coverage. You're not laying eyes on 1% of your data that you're collecting. Every one of us here has a shit ton of data. We don't even care about laying eyes on one of them. We collect them for compliance. But if you can actually lay eyes on them, that's the idea. Like just lay eyes on them in the SOC. The person would look at tickets and they'd have 100 relevant data points. And if they want to give it feedback, they can give it feedback. in the SOC. They don't have to go to like a master of data science to give it feedback, because what the hell is the data science gonna do? It's unsupervised. Like, just tell it what is good, and if you want, you can hire the data scientist to help you put some sort of data structure, like model the data in a way that makes the cluster get what you want. And you can hire a data scientist intern every summer to try to iterate on this. But do I need a data scientist full-time? Hell no. I think we're at time. Any more questions? I want to take all the questions in the world. Yes?
For clustering, are there specific event types where this might not work as well? Or is it
For clustering, all of the data points would work because they all share some sort of event attributes that are relevant to each other in the SIM. Everything probably has some sort of an entity relevant to it. If you have an alert that doesn't have an entity and you have an entity-based graph, no. But what kind of alert or event or log doesn't have an entity in the SIM? Probably like some sort of like vulnerability maybe, or something like that that's like just affecting common stuff maybe. But you can choose what data you give. The way I do it is give it all. Give it all the data sources and tell it what do you want. Here are some tickets, like false positive ticket, lone incident, coordinated. Like if you have those historically, use them. If you don't have them, like essentially a clustering algorithm would help you start on having those automatically generated, and the people would essentially just give you feedback on them. Any questions before we wrap up?
Questions?
All right, we'll do questions in the hallway. I have a shit ton of stickers. I have a shit ton of stuff for you guys for holding it together for 2 hours. I know it's impossible to hold 2 hours in terms of attention, but I appreciate you. Please add me on LinkedIn. I'll give you cards and stickers at the back. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And make sure you get the information of these folks. They're actually leaders that are innovative instead of NTTD or NTTR oriented. So you want these kind of folks to work with. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm very, very grateful.